Today we're visiting 3 extraordinary seaside homes. We start in the historic town of Whitstable, where UK-based designer Brooke Copp-Barton restored a Victorian terrace just steps from the sea, reviving lost period details and layering in her signature eclectic style.
I went to a local salvage yard and found the fireplace surround. We then laid tiles on both the hearths. So we used Zalige, kind of handmade Moroccan tiles. We put back in the fireplace surround and then obviously put in a wood-burning stove to, make it a real fireplace.
On Sweden's dramatic west coast, Teodor and Nicklas Hultman created a serene retreat in a tiny town where Scandinavian simplicity meets art, travel, and a deep connection to nature.
So when my grandmother come down from the stairs to have her morning coffee, he had placed the flowers just next to her coffee. So whenever she got down, wake up to a fresh set of flowers. And I think it's so easy and it's so simple, but it's also so thoughtful.
And in Chester, Nova Scotia, designer Victoria Armour transformed a 120-year-old waterfront cottage into a vibrant summer escape, blending Palm Beach flair with classical East Coast charm.
What I love about this cottage is when I find these kind of little decor items, these little trinkets that typically, I could never put this in my primary home, but I see it and I'm like, this is so cute and it's perfect for this space. So if you guys come back in a few years, probably this entire ledge will be flooded with little crazy pieces, but this is a little bird from Iceland that I just added this summer, and I just love that it fits so perfectly.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Brooke. Welcome to my home. Hi, I'm Brooke Copp-Barton. I'm an interior designer and you're here in my home in Whitstable. So we have loved Whitstable for many years. We were coming here with a family for kind of family holidays. In fact, I think actually it was my sister-in-law Tara who introduced us to Whitstable, but it's like an array of like independent stores and restaurants and, seaside vibes. And we just wanted to find a place that we could call our own, that we could, renovate from scratch, that we would then have to come and visit in the holidays. So we started a search. We knew we wanted a period home. We knew we wanted, in this area, there's lots of Victorian terraces, and this was the street we wanted to be in because we're literally 5 minutes from the sea and 5 minutes from the high street. So we looked at a few, but this is the one that I knew as soon as I walked into. I think it was the space actually in this living area, the fact that we could easily make a kind of double reception area and a place kind of big enough for families to share holiday space and holiday time. So yeah, this was the one that we chose. We spend as much time as we can. We love it. The family. It's just such a family space for us. So we will come 1 week of every school holidays. So my kids are 12 and 14. So we will come 1 week after Christmas, which is a time when, there's been that kind of mad rush, kind of getting everyone ready for Christmas. And then for us, it's just this kind of calming break. So we come and kind of unwind here, and then we'll spend a week at Easter, we'll spend a week in the summer. We also try and spend half terms here as well when we can. Yeah, so we grab as much time here as possible. So here we are in the entrance hall. So this is when you first come into the home. So what I loved about this space is that you can see all the way through to the kitchen and the garden. And there was originally a door here into the living room, and we were never going to use that because we wanted to put a big sofa and a big kind of sitting area. So we filled the door in and created window glazing, which we added, so that immediately you get a much greater sense of space and light as you come in. And previously this kind of hallway was quite dark and dingy, so bringing the light in just makes it altogether more welcoming. And then we've kind of started the space with my favourite colours. So we have this kind of lovely kind of blue-green on the walls, and actually this is little green pleat which we've used throughout on the doors and stairs and elsewhere as you move around the house. I've found this kind of gorgeous vintage runner to kind of feel quite welcoming when you come in, which also matches our red front door, and then just kind of taking that red thread up the stairs with a runner. We did actually, when we bought the house, there were no banisters. It was like an old, it had been knocked through. I don't quite understand why. So I wanted to kind of just replicate what would have been here originally. So we had a newel post made and new banisters put in, so that it just felt more authentic to the kind of bones of the home. And we also replaced the front door, which was again not appropriate to the kind of period of the home, and we I was able to kind of source from an antique market a reclaimed door that we painted red, obviously, and I sourced some old cathedral glass, stained glass panels to go in the original door. So I love finding vintage pieces for the home. So this is a vintage mirror that we found in a market. There's still space for art to find. There's a big gap there that I'm waiting to find the right thing for. But here, Whitstable, it's obviously right by the sea, and in 1953 there were like these huge storms and floods. So these actually are shots of our street when it was in the floods, so you can kind of see people being rescued on boats and so forth, and our local pub, the Old Neptune, is kind of being battered by winds and waves. So I just liked kind of bringing some of the history of the area into the home, and Whitstable is our happy place. So I like to, it's not. We didn't want to put too many kind of seaside references into the interiors, so there's just like a little nod to its heritage and its location through those photos. But we chose these lights so that it's not overtly lit when you come in, but when they're on, they just give like a lovely glow down the walls that kind of helps to kind of create ambience. And we wanted to choose a kind of warm, living metal finish. So again, it's not too pristine, that it feels quite age appropriate for the home. I would say my design style is fairly eclectic. I love spaces to feel lived in. I don't want it to feel like a show home. I want it to feel like it's a real space. The cushions don't have to be all plumped. It can be like, really lived in. I like vintage furniture. I like the idea that the furniture has been pre-loved by someone else before it made it here. I like the fact that we can, put cups down and it doesn't matter. It's not going to mess it up. And, I like that there's a bit of character to everything that's here. So, we have gathered, I've just tried to kind of gather different pieces from different eras. A lot of the furniture here has been found at antique or vintage markets, and I like mixing textures, and so I love the kind of the vintage rugs with the velvet sofa, with the kind of linen ottoman, and I enjoy being surrounded by colour. That makes me happy. So I think kind of throughout the home, you'll probably see my favourite colours on display. So I love red, it's warm, and there's a kind of red thread that kind of weaves the space together, I think. So now I'm going to take you into the open plan living area. So this is the living room, and I think this area is kind of what sold us on the house when we first found it, because it spreads. So this is perhaps the traditional living room. That is the middle reception area. So it allows us to have kind of two seating areas. So this is obviously where we watch our telly, and the other half of the room is kind of more for reading or contemplation or, kids' playroom. We have various kind of toys and things that we've kind of gathered over time. When we first bought the home, the windows were old, well, they were kind of PVC, they just weren't very nice. So the first job we did actually in the whole house was to replace all of the original sashes. So we did the front bay window, we did the two windows upstairs, we put original kind of wooden sash. We wanted, with everything in the house, we wanted to do it as respectfully to the period of the home as possible. So we kind of reinstated the coving in the ceiling and the ceiling roses. We put back in fireplaces that had been stripped out. We put back in the windows. But I wanted to kind of just make it, just give it a little twist. And that's kind of why we added colour to the windows and the frames, so that it's just a little bit of perhaps the unexpected in some of the details that we were putting back in. So I was looking for a beautiful kind of vintage rug. So this is a Moroccan vintage piece that we found that was kind of perfect for the space. And colour-wise, it's that kind of warm kind of pinks and little touches of green and grey and blue in there as well. And then I wanted to find some old pieces to reupholster, and we picked a kind of, it's not quite boucle, but I like those mixtures of textures. So this is kind of, it's got a beautiful weave to it. We then kind of mix that with some linen, with some velvet, and then some kind of Killam cushions, just to kind of, so it's not all samey, so that it just feels a bit more lived in. A lot of the pieces you find in here are from markets. So this and the little side table and the standard lamp, they're all kind of vintage pieces that we've collected. I spent a lot of time scouring different antiques markets to kind of find some beautiful pieces to go in here. I think perhaps my favourite is one of my favourites is the sideboard. And also just this artwork. I think there's a lot of there's a kind of real kind of strong mix of old and new in here. And for me, this is obviously a modern piece of art, but I quite like that juxtaposition of the kind of slightly grittier backdrop with some of the prettier details, and also the fact that it just brings me joy, just this kind of, just a dancing lady in the middle of nowhere. That means that joy can be found anywhere. And then I also love this piece, which when we were doing up the house, we wanted to, find some local artists to kind of help make the space feel authentic to Whitstable. There's a gallery that kind of does pop-up events called the Show Off Gallery down in the town. And there was a local artist called Liz Shedden who was exhibiting there. And yeah, I just loved her pieces. And she ended up, coming here, seeing the home, seeing what we'd done with the space, and we commissioned this piece to, make this room feel joyful. And then this end of the room, I call this my husband's area of the room. This is his kind of a nod to Manchester. So we have Stanley Chow prints on the walls. We have Joy Division. It just feels like this was, one of his kind of pride and joys. So yeah, there's different influences with the artwork in the home. We had the option to plasterboard the fireplace in. And I think we decided that I just quite like, again, those kind of mix of textures. that just leaving this brickwork exposed brings. And it just feels, it's not too perfect, not too, it just feels like it just feels warmer being exposed in that way. We did, obviously, with this fireplace, this was all bricked in when we first found the home, which was, I think, a travesty. So I went to a local salvage yard and found the fireplace surround. We then laid tiles on both the hearths. So we used Zalige kind of handmade Moroccan tiles. We put back in the fireplace surround and then obviously put in a wood burning stove to make it a real fireplace. But I think having the two different fireplace areas just makes it a bit more interesting. And this, just talking about kind of mixing old with new, this has sentimental value because it's obviously an Urkel rocking chair, but I've had that for years, and yeah, brings back happy memories of when the kids were born, and so we wanted to kind of fill the space with things that were personal to us. So when we bought this house, this was a window. So, and obviously none of that existed. So we knew we wanted to extend the kitchen. And, it was our fabulous architect. We used a Whitstable architect called Spacemaker. And we also used a local Canterbury contractor, Owen Begg, who were amazing. So we had the best team involved with our renovations. And basically, our architect came up with this kind of long kind of skylights down into the kitchen, which just adds so much light into the space. And so we opened this out completely so that we can obviously, there's now two, because it's quite a narrow home, there's the gap between through the hallway, which was the original way into the kitchen, it's just really quite small. So this now allows us, especially with like two families sharing the space, this now allows kind of two areas to get in and out of the kitchen. And yeah, I love that when you kind of walk through here, it's just so much. So this is our kind of cozy, warm space. And then you come in here and it suddenly just opens out and you can see the sky and it's bright and it's daylight and it just, yeah, you can see the garden. And I mean, it's a slightly gloomy day today, but on a beautiful sunny day, it's just absolutely gorgeous. And then the colours seamlessly go through. And when I first saw those tiles, I knew I had to have them. And then when I first saw them being laid, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I absolutely love the pink terrazzo floor. I think when it comes to colour, for me, it's quite instinctive. I just gravitate towards what I like, and I'll try different things together. And then just might slightly tweak it or slightly adjust it or just feel as if it might need another pop here or there. It's not something that I think about hugely. I think you kind of have to go with how it makes you feel. And I think these colours in particular, the kind of soft greens and the reds and the pinks, they are certainly my happy colours. So this is the kitchen, and I think, as I said earlier, we intend to move here and live here. So we wanted to make sure that this space, and I love cooking, and we like entertaining. So we wanted to make sure the space was as cosy as possible and as practical and would kind of stand the kind of test of time. I think the issue within here was there was quite a lot to fit in, quite a small space. So we obviously have the kitchen, which is kind of one long run underneath the skylights. We then have our kind of tall units over there, and then the island, which gives us extra storage. But we also needed to fit in dining table for 8 people. Also, I wanted a sitting area, and we wanted to kind of carve out space on the plan for a downstairs toilet and utility area. So the way we did that was to kind of effectively kind of carve out a little kind of long space that we've split into two. So that's the toilet, this is the utility with, you know, washing machine, dryer, boiler, all that kind of stuff. And then that allowed us to kind of create a little kind of banquette seating area, which is quite a space-saving device for being able to seat quite a lot of people. So, and I think as well, just kind of having the kind of the banquette area in that little nook makes it feel cozy. And I like the fact that in this area, there are defined zones, defined spaces. So we have our kind of dining area, we have our kind of relaxation area, which is actually one of my favourite spots in the house. I love sitting there in the morning, especially actually on a day like today when it's actually a bit gloomy. But I love just sitting in that spot with a cappuccino, and I kind of, you just feel close to nature, and yeah, I like being able to see the sky. And then obviously here is kind of our kitchen area. And I think perhaps what you might first notice about the kitchen is we went quite bold with the colours. We had this big pole that we couldn't get rid of, but sometimes I quite like showing the bones of a building. So here, it's obviously a Victorian terrace that we've extended. So this is the kind of new extension, and I like that kind of modern with old. So I didn't want to necessarily hide the fact that that's what we'd done. I like seeing, so I liked the fact that we've got this kind of big industrial beam that runs all the way across, that we have this pole that's kind of keeping the house, it's propping the house up. And, again, my favourite colours, so I just thought, well, let's just make a feature of it. It feels warm, it feels friendly, it goes with the floor. So we also then extended the colour onto the kind of the wooden beams of the skylight too, to kind of just frame the space. And then we also extended that colour kind of beyond into the garden. Just behind is, we put an awning, like an old-fashioned sun protection awning out there to, and again, that kind of just reflects the colours. And I just love how the kind of greens of the garden, just work with it kind of just feels an extension of the living space, because it just, the colours seem to work together. The colours in this kitchen are Edward Bulmer. I think this is red ochre from memory. This is maybe light olive green, but I love his palette, and they're sustainable, so they're very eco-friendly. The post, actually, we had, so our poor builder had to, because we were adding a floor onto the house, we had to, because this is an exposed steel, there was talk about kind of boxing in building plasterboard around the pillar. And I was like, I just want the plain pillar. And so there was like a long saga about what we do with the beam. And there was like a gap in the beam. And for fire regs, because we were putting another room on the house, we had to paint it all in incandescent paint, so that in the event of a fire, it wouldn't melt. But yeah, it was I think it was a headache for our poor builder, but they were amazing, and they went above and beyond, and I'm really thrilled with how it worked out. Yeah, we went with neutrals with the rest of the space, so that we could then, showcase some of the art and let the other colours kind of pop, really. These are, I use these a lot. They're Liege tiles that are kind of artisan made. I think they're made in Morocco. And they just come in these, beautiful, just real colours. So this one, I think, is one of the dusky pink colours. But they just have that kind of artisan feel to them. They're all irregular. Again, I don't think the tilers love them, because I think they're quite difficult to tile. They don't look all perfect. They look, I like the fact that it's imperfect. I like there to be imperfection in interiors. I think that's what gives homes personality. So I knew I was going to have those when we were doing this kitchen. And this is one of my favourite pieces, actually. I like the little pop of red. I like I like vintage finds. So again, that was another market find, as was my teapot. Yeah, and again, just following through with the finishes. We wanted, it's not for everybody. I like the fact that it's this is a new tap, but it's an unlacquered brass, as are all the handles. So they will continue to age and develop a patina over time. But I like that look. And again, I think it's kind of age appropriate for the house. It feels lived in. It's not too perfect. And yeah, I love these taps. Budget-wise, we were restricted when we were kind of doing the build. The build was a lot more expensive than we thought it was going to be when we first, came to it, which is why there are still some gaps with artwork. We will fill them over time. I'm kind of waiting now to find the right pieces to fill some of the spots. But I wanted to put something up above the dining area because it was a big space to fill. And I found they're actually vintage ceiling tiles. And again, it's kind of just mixing different textures. Art doesn't have to be a painting or a photograph. It can be, sometimes I quite like things that are a bit more textural, a bit more 3D, that aren't necessarily flat. And then we've kind of paired that with a little vintage find from a market in terms of the painting, the oil painting at the end. So I like kind of mixing things up a little bit. Another space-saving device with this kitchen was we used, these were the two doors that were, the living room was originally divided into two, and there was like a doorway that opened out. But we reused these, we kept them, reused them, painted them. And just because, again, we're quite pushed on space, we, rather than having them as doors that open, especially into this kind of narrow pathway to the front door, we put them on a sliding mechanism. I won't open that one because it's not very attractive inside, it's the laundry. But in here, this is our downstairs toilet. And it just means that it doesn't take up any space in the house. And it was just a really great way of reusing what was already here, but also making it practical given the kind of some of the space restrictions. And this is actually one of my favourite rooms in the house. It's the downstairs toilet, but it has got one of my all-time favourite wallpapers. Again, I knew that when we had the opportunity to do this house, that wallpaper was going to be in it. So obviously it is led by the wallpaper, obviously, which is a kind of mid-century Joseph Frank wallpaper. It's just one of my all-time favourites. We then created a basin area, again with Swedish tiles. We painted the ceiling, so this our kind of beautiful red colour is then kind of just enveloped all over the ceiling and the skirtings. And I've got a favourite piece of art in there from Bridget Davies. And a little kind of sink curtain underneath the sink to hide the clobber that goes underneath, and another vintage find in terms of mirror from market. So yeah, the littlest room in the house, but it's one of my favourites. Just in the hallway, we tried to use every inch of space. So we kept this deliberately open so that people can come in and dump their coats. I quite like having coats out of the way, and it meant that we didn't have to do expensive kind of coat joinery. We just have this almost like ready-made nook under the stairs where we hung vintage hooks for like coats and things, umbrella, bucket, basket, and then we created just this little shelf for putting shoes. It's kind of one of my bugbears when there's no place to put shoes and stuff. So it allows us to kind of, put everything away. So we're now going to go upstairs and I'll take you into the front bedroom, the front of the house. So now we're on the first floor, and you can see with the wallpaper, we've actually carried that round. So as you kind of come upstairs, there's no kind of obvious place for wallpaper in a hallway to stop. So I think the easiest way is just to wrap it around, and it gives this kind of space. It feels like a big hug. And then we kind of naturally finished it there, because this area up here is the new extension. So this is the bit that we added to the home. So we kept the continuity by using the same colours. Again, we recreated like an old banister, like an old newel post. So that is reflective of, again, the period of the home. And you'll see when we go upstairs, we deliberately did that slightly differently so that it felt like it's a modern extension, but done in a sympathetic way. So this is the front bedroom. And I think we're lucky in this house because, as I said, it's a small little terrace. All the rooms are a decent size. They all fit double beds. And actually with the kids' rooms, we have done twin beds that kind of lock together and make a double if we wanted to. But this is, I would say, one of the master bedrooms. Again, we put new windows in. These were PVC windows that we wanted to make more like the original. And all the pieces in here are sourced from, or apart from the bed, all the pieces here are sourced from vintage markets. So we kept our costs down by doing it that way. And actually, what I find with vintage is that, you know, some of these pieces are just absolutely beautifully made. So, you know, whilst you're not spending a fortune, you know, you're still getting, you know, some beautiful pieces of craftsmanship. In here, the kind of hero of the piece is the upholstered bed. I wanted it to kind of have a kind of a sense of grandeur a little bit, and I kind of like how the stripes and the patterns work together. And the fireplace, this was another fireplace that was completely bricked up and blocked in. So this was another find where we found the fireplace downstairs, except this time we wanted to put back the original kind of, this is a combination wrought iron fireplace that we sourced from the same reclamation yard, although it didn't look like that. It was covered in cobwebs and paint and so forth. So we, well, not we, but our lovely builders sandblasted it and brought it back to its former glory. So in this room, it didn't feel, the ceilings are quite low, it didn't feel right to put coving in here. I don't think there would have been coving in the kind of upstairs rooms of these types of homes. So I did, however, want to finish off the height of the room. We just used a kind of tiny piece of kind of wooden doweling, edging, I'm not quite sure what you would call it, and just I quite liked that definition in colour that kind of works with the kind of trim on the curtains and some of the other colours in the house. And I also, and this is actually on all of our curtains in the house, I like the fact that I didn't want it to just be plain from the outside. It's a small detail, but I didn't really want it to be plain from the outside. So I chose to have the lining of all the curtains and all the blinds in a kind of ticking stripe, just to make it a little bit different. This is my daughter's bedroom. She loves it. She loves turquoise, actually, and I didn't want to go all out turquoise. So this is a beautiful print from Joy of Print. And I like, it's just like a subtle small print wallpaper that just brings texture and interest to a room, and then you can so easily kind of layer on artwork and prints, and I just think it's a lovely backdrop. And yeah, it's a sunny room. I love this. I think it's called Day Room Yellow. I think this one might be a fire on wall. And we put it on the ceiling, and we put it on. This was existing cupboard that was here that we just. Yeah, I just wanted, and we painted inside and out. I won't show you inside the cupboard. But we also did the same on the window. So yeah, it feels like it's a sunshine room. It feels like it's just enveloped in colour. Yeah, again, still some, walls to fill with artwork. But we have cats at home, so the David Shrigley print was a favourite, and it reminds us a little bit of our cats at home. Yeah, again, vintage pieces that we found all of. I mean, the mirror, and the chest of drawers, and then the bedside table. And actually, I like this room because you can see out into the garden, and you also feel connected to the space downstairs because you can see through the skylight into the kitchen. This was one of there were a couple of fireplaces left in the house. This one was here, and the one in the other kids' bedroom. Again, they were all covered up. So, and again, it was all painted and was in not a great condition. So we kind of uncovered it. It was one of the first things we did when we got the house, is we stripped up the carpets, which were awful, and we just got a hammer out and started trying to find out what was behind these kind of blocked up spaces. And yeah, this was one of the finds. This was one of the things we found. I like this view out here because I like the fact that you see some of that exposed brick, and you can see that the house extends beyond, and this was what we've added to the home. So and I like how the colours work, and I like the kind of that imperfect brick again, with the modern art on top. So I'm quite late to interior design, actually. I started my career in advertising, so I worked for 20 odd years in the advertising world and had an amazing time. And I was client services, and I think that certainly helped from a design perspective in my second career. I then had kids, and I took that opportunity to retrain. So I did it was a part-time course to kind of just learn the basics of interiors. I think I always had a passion for home and making home, and making the space where I live lovely. That's important to me. So I feel as if I always wanted to do this. So yeah, I retrained and then got some experience doing some internships, and just got some practical experience kind of under my belt. And as soon as I had the opportunity, I branched out on my own. Moving to the back of the house, so again, we've had some more fun with wallpaper. I suppose I kind of feel as if this is a holiday home, so we could have some joy with colour and patterns. So, all of the bedrooms, actually apart from the front bedroom, have wallpaper. So this one is Lucky Leaf by Common Room. Again, another favourite wallpaper of mine. So I'm glad I had the chance to kind of use it. And this is my son's bedroom. And again, we kind of carried on that theme of just sunshine and brightness, and just I think these colours just make me joyful. Again, we've added colour on the ceiling, perhaps again a slightly unexpected touch, but I like just being surrounded in colour. And this was one of my favourite finds. It was almost a steal. It's just this really sweet little vintage sideboard, a vintage bedside table that I just think has a real kind of old-fashioned charm about it. I think when you're designing, you're always trying to make sure that the rooms work together. You always try and, I think, look at it as a whole. You know, you want each individual room to have its own personality, but you also, I think, want to look at it as a house as a whole and just make sure that the colours work with each other, that the style of each room, you know, feels like they sit next to each other. So yeah, I always have a kind of view to the whole home when designing a space. I just particularly like this chest of drawers. It's again another vintage find, but I just like it's just slightly wonky. It's just slightly. It reminds me of my kind of, you know, childhood and my bedroom at home, and I like the kind of just it's just I like the fact that it's just been used a lot and looks like it's been well loved. What I love about this home is that when you walk in, the downstairs space feels really open. It feels really spacious, and you know, it doesn't feel like this kind of tiny little home. It actually feels like it opens out as you walk through it, and I love just kind of sitting in this area and then kind of looking out, and there's a glimpse into the kitchen. You can see, as you come in, you can almost see straight through into the garden. There are views in the downstairs, and I like how those views, you know, interact. So this is now the new part of the home. So this is the extension going up into the loft. And the original plan was to have brick wall going all the way up. But when we bought the house, we couldn't see upstairs. There was this tiny, tiny, tiny little hatch into the loft that nobody went into. So the first time we were able to go into it was when we'd already done all the architect's plans, that had already gone through planning. You know, it was only when the builder was here that we were able to get upstairs. And so it became apparent that we couldn't use the original wall upstairs for various dull reasons. So we had to come up with another solution. And the way of doing it I think perhaps I quite like differentiating the old from the new. So we added panelling to the kind of new build section, so that I didn't want it to feel like a boxy space. I wanted it to feel like it was still warm and cozy and connected to the home. So I think that the panelling allows it to feel just warmer, and it's not like a standard developed loft. It just has a bit more character. So coming up the stairs, so we've kind of kept the colours the same as downstairs. So we're now, this is still Edward Bulmer. This is the Cuista Nymph Emu. And we built in loft space with a little hidden door. So this is the new loft bedroom. And yeah, we were amazed at the space we got up here. We weren't expecting it. And when the first time that our builder brought us up and kind of showed us this space, so we'd only seen it as we'd been like, you know, we'd been up on ladders and we'd been looking at, you know, climbing through like little hatches to kind of get up here and have a look. And then the day that they brought us up and they'd opened out the kind of the dormer space, we suddenly had this view that was like totally unexpected. You know, we're in Whitstable, and you know, you might expect a sea view. So this home doesn't have a sea view, but it has a view over the golf course that was just like a total unexpected bonus. So yeah, so that's, and then we wanted to again kind of embrace the fact that it was a modern extension. So we wanted to put in Crittall steel windows that reflect the Crittall doors of the kitchen extension. So that's kind of what we went with on the kind of the dormer side. And I think our architect did an amazing job up here because it doesn't feel cramped. You've got like great kind of height. There's that kind of slightly sloping ceiling that I like, that quirk. I like the fact that it's certainly not a square room. And you know, we had long discussions about whether we box that in and I felt quite strongly that I wanted to embrace the quirks of the room. So this is the chimney breast, the chimney stack from, it must be the living room downstairs. So I wanted to expose beyond the chimney breast and actually just embrace the different shapes that sometimes, loft extensions bring. We also wanted to kind of carve out space for an ensuite. And it's tricky upstairs because you want to keep as much space for the kind of bed area as possible. But I'm really pleased that we were able to kind of make it, space for a really large shower, so it doesn't feel pokey when you're in here. And we just had a little bit of fun with the floor tiles. And again, we carried on the horizontal panelling so that there was a little bit of a continuity with the panelling from the stair area. And just, it's also a way of just adding some character. It's not just flat walls. And then just trying to, maximise the storage space as much as possible. This is under the eaves where we have built, this is in fact actually the only kind of built-in joinery, storage joinery we did. I think possibly when we, move here full time, we might have to build some more storage space. But for now, it's perfectly fine from a holiday let perspective and, us using it as a holiday home. I wanted to add some texture, so I found this raffia that we laid onto the backboard. Again, it's just that kind of mixing textures, not having it completely flat, just adding interest in different elements. I think we were lucky that we were able to go all the way across, so there's actually quite a lot of storage. It's not kind of full height for long dresses, but it is, it's perfectly adequate for what we need, and much more than we were expecting. And it just makes great use of what is ultimately not very usable space. And then I like the angles in the ensuite. And then we've added light. We added a skylight in the bathroom that lets the natural light in, and also going up the stairs in the stairwell we added a skylight above there, so there's lots of natural light coming in from different aspects. I think what makes a house a home for me is family time, is having friends and family around, making memories, having space where you can share and spend time together, and just enjoy each other's company. I like a home to be, to be happy. I think that what we've tried to do here is, or what I certainly try with interiors, is to, talk to clients and find out what makes them happy. And then having all those things on display around you, having things that bring you joy out on display, rather than, put in cupboards. I like kind of open spaces and open shelves, and so that there's personality around you, and things that bring you joy are around you. That's, I think, what for me makes a home.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Nicklas.
And I'm Theo. Welcome to our summer home on the Swedish West Coast.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Nicklas Hultman. I'm a graphic designer and floral artist living in Gothenburg and here at our house in Aröd. And this is Lucy, our black mini schnauzer. She's 6 years old.
Hi, I'm Theo. I work in the change management field and I'm from Gothenburg. So what brought us here is that after spending quite many years abroad, we were 5 years in China, in Shanghai. We've been living in Denmark for 2-3 years and some other places. We came back to Gothenburg in this stunning apartment, but it's really in the city center, no garden, so we were kind of wanting to experience nature. We wanted to be closer to the sea, and yeah, just really also having a lot of stuff that we bought from our travels around the world. So I think we just decided that we need another space for us.
And also we had Lucy, and she obviously needed some green spaces to walk around on, more green spaces than the city can offer. So that's also part of the reason that we will started looking.
Yeah, exactly. And when we started, we had this limit of no more than 2 hours in car.
One direction.
So we started scanning the entire place, like north, south, but with the limit, I mean, we knew that we'd had to be by the sea or really close to the sea. So yeah, I think we spent a couple of months really going on viewings, getting to know the different areas.
Found amazing houses, like old churches that was like 2 hours away, but we realized 2 hours away it's actually quite far, because that's the entire, if you go for Friday after work, then the entire day is gone.
So now we're, I guess, 35 minutes door to door. Right, so we found this place, had no expectations at all. We've never heard ironically about this place, even though it's so close. Yeah, we came out here and didn't really know what to expect. But as soon as we went off the highway, you got this kind of like feeling that, like, okay, we're starting to tick the boxes of what we're looking for. So I guess the drive from the highway to here is maybe 12-15 minutes. And the closer we got, it was just like, wow, there was something like...
relaxing. The shoulders just kept falling down, and it's a windy road, and on either side is cows walking, it's like farmers harvesting stuff. So it's really, really close to nature. Just what we were looking for.
Yeah. It was important not to only fall in love with the house, but also kind of like the surroundings.
Yeah.
So we spent a couple of like
weekends,
some trips, like exploring the whole areas. And
since we didn't know the area at all beforehand, everything was a new experience. We didn't know there was like sand beaches or cliffs and nature forest that you're not allowed. If a tree falls in a storm, it stays there. So it's a super wild forest and enormous trees. We didn't know that this existed. So it was like these small treasures unwinding themselves while we discovered the area. This is the living room. We painted it kind of off-white-ish to keep it a little bit warmer white, and also to make all the colorful art pop and stand out. Since it's a lot of art, and we also have a lot of wood on different furniture and surfaces, and we intentionally mixed the types of woods. Maybe you shouldn't do that normally, but we did, and we really, really like it, because also wood ages.
By mixing different types of wood, it's not the easiest thing, and we've failed many things, many times with different furnitures, but I think we got it ish now, I have to say. But it is a mix of like a darker wood, tinted wood, but again, try to keep it light with some darker elements.
And see how the wood ages over time.
Exactly. And I think this is a great example of this chair. It's a fantastic chair. done by Enzo Mari, I believe. And you build it yourself. And when we bought it, it was like super pale white. And
almost white.
Yeah, exactly. And like with time, it has like aged and gotten this kind of like much deeper and darker color.
It's completely raw.
Yeah, exactly. Super nice. And as you can see, same with these cabinets by
Virgil Abloh and IKEA collab.
Yeah.
And the placement of these is very intentional because the room is not that big, but you need this kind of furniture. You need to storage your glass and vases and stuff, and it's all corners are glass, so the light just goes through it all, and it's not a big blocky furniture. It just lets the light go through it, and it also reflects very nicely whatever weather it is, blue sky or like today's grayish. It reflects on it. It's super nice.
Exactly. So we try not to like block the natural light, and also because it's a quite small space, we really want it not to feel overwhelming.
And that kind of brings us to my favorite art corner in the house. This one is a textile by a friend of mine called Brian Kenny. He's an American artist. He works a lot with this collage textile-ish thing, both that he painted but also like fabric from advertising, commercial things. And that goes nicely together color-wise with this one by an artist called Ekta, and he's from Gothenburg. He also works a lot with collage and kind of naivistic kind of painting.
And I think what you will see is that we tend to come back to the color blue in different shapes and forms. I don't know, we just realized one day like how we're naturally drawn to it. It's not a conscious decision, but and
especially this tone.
Especially that tone as well, yeah. But you will see it.
That is kind of a new favorite for you. You're really into sun at the moment.
Yeah, really into suns. I don't know why. But that's also why we painted certain rooms, you will see it later as well, in this super warm yellow color as well.
So when the sun hits it, it just glows.
Yeah. Okay, but speaking of art, there's plenty. But I think one of my personal favorite is actually this one. So this is from Jean-Claude and Christo when they covered the Reichstag in Berlin in fabric. So this is actually a piece of that fabric as well.
And it's silver, so whatever color the sky was, the entire building covered in this reflected in that color the sky had.
And it's such a massive artwork and an installation, and it took several years, and I think one of a kind, and just like having a piece of that in our home is
it's a time capsule of an massive art piece.
This is something that's quite
we
special.
treasure.
Yeah, but I mean, art comes in for us, I think, many different types of shapes and forms. We do also collect like art toys, vinyl toys, plush toys as well.
Yeah, it's a mix.
It's a huge mix, and definitely like the mix of like the contemporary and the different styles.
At some point it was like, well, how many things can we bring home? We need to bring something that is we really use. And since I'm really into flowers, it was like, we should bring vases from all the places we go. So this is some of our favorite ones.
So I think like overall theme, it's a mix of travels, like an artist studio as well, but it was always important for us to kind of like bring in also the local element as well, having some Swedish artists. And I mean, Sweden has such a like rich history in so many things.
And the new one, this is by a fresh designer.
Yeah. You went to her exhibition, right?
Exhibition final show.
Yeah.
And then I saw her work, and she only did woodwork. So we connected there. And then she showed me this chair, and I was like instantly in love with it. Because everything is in different pieces, so you can just put it all in, it becomes this flat.
Yeah.
She's called Rebecca Manberg.
Yeah. And it's done because she herself had ADHD.
Yeah.
And had a lot of trouble like sitting still at class and listening, concentrating. So it's really done for movement.
And here's my grandfather's painting that I talked about. Next, this is also like, it comes back to contrast all the time. James Jean, a Korean artist that we found in when we were in Tokyo?
In South Korea, actually.
South Korea. So this was lithography that belonged to a porcelain plate as well with the same print on it. And this is by a friend of ours called Erik Lengt. I think it's beautiful together. It's just different view on nature. This is small creatures by a Japanese artist called Noe. She's living in London at the moment, and she does amazing ceramics. And this is a series that's Japanese folklore going into nature. So all her things is based on the folklore. Like this one is a moon vase by a story that she got told when she was a kid. And this one is also a vase that she got based on some story, folklore story that she heard. And we have also another shape, sculpture-ish vase outside. We can have a look later.
Continuing also, like this craftsmanship can also come in like many different like forms. They're of course amazing artists who do things in own studios as well, but there are also like other types of similar things that we've also connected with, and I think these two are a great example of that one. It is done by Loviet.
It's a Portuguese brand.
It's a Portuguese brand who really are taking the craftsmanship. They're doing something very, very special with it. They're, using old techniques and keeping them alive by doing so as well.
Everything by hand.
Everything by hand. We really fell in love with this seashell because I think it's like such a good vibe also, considering we are here by the sea. And Nicklas always making flowers, need vessels of so many different types and kinds. And I think this one just like is like a perfect match.
It's actually a soup bowl.
Yeah,
But
or a
it's
salad bowl as well, and it has a lid, so it is actually kind of like a mythical figure of some sort. It's super cute. But we have like a majority of the house is quite like open, so like if we would move in here, we would go into the kitchen area. But even though it's quite open, I quite like that we have this one. It's still dividing the rooms somehow, but still keeping it open.
So when we were looking at all these houses, we have one thing at the back of our head. Since we lived abroad so long time, we collected a lot of stuff and memories that are really valuable for us and that we wanted to see, not just put them in a storage. And when we were looking at different houses, we was like, can this fit in here? Can all our stuff work here? What kind of mood will that create in this space? So that and being too far away was kind of narrow it down if the space was not allowing our things to speak. And we also had what kind of style, since we have that many things, we were talking about what kind of style should we go for. And we've always been inspired by David Hockney's studio style, or Virgil Abloh's style, or Keith Haring's studio. Those messy style where it's a lot of colors, a lot of stuff, everything is loud. They could play something and that's not permanent. It could be there for a week or it could be there for 2 minutes. Nothing is permanent, it's just a vivid space. So that's kind of the style that we wanted to interpret here as well.
So when it comes to like how we wanted to decorate, and we really started off with like a vision. We knew that the house, it's a timber house, done actually in a traditional Norwegian style. It's a Norwegian architect. So it was trying to figure out, okay, we have this style of the house. We want to be true to that style. We have a lot of stuff that we bought from our trips and travels that are really meaningful for us because they hold so many memories. But then we also reflected on like, who are we? What types of spaces do we also want to be in and enjoy and, you know, are creative in? With your artistic background as well, is super creative. We really have always been leaning towards this artistic style. And then that led us to an artist studio. So we did some research. We checked out, was it David Hockney?
Yeah, Virgil Abloh and Keith Haring.
Yeah, so we're looking at these artist studios, like the behind the scenes of what they do when they are producing, when they are creative. And
how they use their spaces.
Yeah, and that's really, I think that stuck with us quite a lot, and thinking of also what we have, our stuff as well, and what we are actually could also build on long term, that felt very right for us.
Yeah, that kind of creative spaces where nothing is permanent.
Yeah, so that's how it all started, and I think still like to this day, even though we have quite many things here, you know, it is always when we're out like shopping or at flea markets and we see something that we like, and if we're not sure if it is for us, then we ask ourselves like, is this a studio object? Yeah.
If it's not, then we don't pick it up.
Yeah. Then we just leave it. But it is also like this element of like from an artistic studio, an artist studio, it is also like the creation process of like owning and developing and mastering a craft as well. So that has also led us to like look for things that are handmade or somewhat, you know, there is a technique behind it, because
those kind of objects has a part of the soul that the person who have done it, it's kept in there, and we really like that, because that's like, it's a lot of stories in all the objects.
So now we are in the kitchen, which is made out of like 2 kitchen islands, which I was a bit skeptical to in the beginning when we just moved in, but after some time now I absolutely love it. I think it is the best type of layout for me and for us and for being social, because my experience is that when we have friends over, you want to talk, you want to, you know, they want to see what's happening. You sometimes need them to help out, and by all being gathered here, that gets enabled, and it creates this kind of like super informal dinners that are just fantastic. And having both sides here, it really also then offers quite a lot of workspace. The only thing that we did is that because we wanted people sitting here looking into where the food gets prepared, we added this, I don't know, I think it's like Swedish, it's a Swedish stone of some kind, just to like bring the table out a bit to be a bit more comfortable for sitting and eating. So I think otherwise we've kept it quite simple and clean. Really enjoy when it comes to like cooking and food and preparing food is that I know a lot of people with the kitchens like it practical, and I think I'm quite the opposite. As you can see, it is much more centered around having nice things around me rather than practical things, because I think being around things that you really enjoy, that really helps with the creativity in the kitchen. I think this is a great example. This is just like the most beautiful shell you've ever seen. Has no function at all whatsoever, except for the creative process. And I think that's what food is all about. And again, we're sticking to the seashells. It's quite everywhere in the home. Nicklas has his creativity with, you know, flowers, arrangements, and so on. And the food, that's kind of like my thing. And when it comes to food, my biggest inspiration, I think it's this book. It's a book about Salvador Dali. I don't know, it's everything, to be honest. It's my greatest source of like inspiration when it comes to how to think, how to view food and produce, how to set tables. It is, you know, it's really pushing beyond when it comes to what food is and how to experience it. And I think that's also how I've kind of like centered the kitchen around. I don't mind doing manual things instead of like using a machine to do it, because there is something in that process. You can control certain things in a different way. So when it comes to cooking in kitchen, being practical really has no space here. A really good way where we kind of like are combining or joining forces is I also use quite a lot of flowers, and when it comes to like the creativity, when it comes to, you know, decorating, I always steal flowers from Nicklas' arrangements. I bring up the scissors.
And even if I have made flowers for the dinner, you always say, "Can I pick these?"
Yeah, exactly.
And then you kind of
exactly.
see me ruin it, but it's okay.
And right now, I mean, it's like end of summer. There's a lot, so you like it's so easy just to go out and you get super nice things, but maybe not as much on the rest of the year. So starting to kind of like dry flowers as well, and keeping them close also is just a nice reminder. Like, it is things like this that really matters so much. Again, keeping up with the Salvador Dali theme as well, also trying to incorporate like I say in style of, especially as well. And I think these two, this giant fork and spoon is really just like could come straight from the book as well. So it is this kind of like cues that kind of like reminds me, I would say, that like it can be so much more than just like a hot meal on a plate. And I think right now peak season of apples, or soon to be peak season of apples, you know, just like bringing in a branch, it can really just keep it super simple, but does quite a lot.
Yeah.
These ones, I think, super unpractical for sure, but worth it. We bought them when we were in South Korea, and I think they're traditional cast iron rice cookers. I have them in multiple sizes and shapes. This tray, which I now have tomatoes on. When I was a small kid, I think like many in my age, or had Indiana Jones as their like true hero, so had I, and always been kind of like stuck with me, and always had kind of like this childhood dream that one day I will also you know, dig up things in the desert. Didn't really turn out like that, but so that's for my 40th. We went on a cruise down the Nile in Egypt. So that was almost like a 1 week cruise that we did on these old sail ships. And we did stops along the way while cruising down the Nile, just like Agatha Christie. We actually even saw the boat that she went on as well. But yeah, there was just such a meaningful trip because, you know, it was this kind of like childhood dream, almost like coming to life. I mean, we visited the pyramids, the Sphinx, we saw all the mummies and stuff like that, but also like being on this sailing down the Nile I think has been the most, I don't know, life altering, or I don't know, like has had the biggest impact on me and how I view kind of like vacations, on how I view kind of like food and experiences.
It was so amazing because it was only the wind that took us down the Nile, so everything was, of course,
so quiet,
so slow paced. And there was nothing to do more than just calming down and sitting down and watching people living their normal life on either side of the Nile. So that was amazing.
Yeah, amazing. So then, of course, you know, we made stops. We, you know, did many things, and that's where we bought this one. And again, this is also made out of like an very old traditional way of working with a very specific kind of clay that almost kind of like that knowledge got almost lost. But then has been brought to life. It has also helped people, you know, creating a business, and it has generated work opportunities for people. And it's also just like stunning, you know, it has this blue, it has the flowers, it really feels like it's made for us. And I don't know, I think this is the one thing I would actually save from a fire, to be honest.
Oh, did you know that?
Exactly. No, but it holds so much in this one piece. It's my birthday, it's my youth, it's my like dreams as a young boy, and it's quite something.
Wherever there's a space to put flowers, I tend to put flowers on those spaces, and of course in the kitchen there's lovely to have them. And when I do is like fruits and vegetables in them, since we are in the kitchen, it's like a reminder of where they belong. And this one, for example, is built to fit the area it stands. It has the ladder up to the TV room as the backdrop. So that's why the shape is like that. And it also opens up to where the rest of the kitchen are. And I always mix here is this 100% seasonal flowers. And now Sweden is peak, beautiful seasonal flowers. So it's really easy. Whatever season it is, I think it's super interesting to like really go out. If you're out walking with the dog, for example, just look down. What you see? Is there a fallen branch? Is it like weeds growing on the sidewalk? That could be super beautiful, like dandelions, for example. Things that you don't normally put in an arrangement or use as like expensive flowers. Just treat them as if they were. So this one, since you're moving around it needs to be beautiful 360 degrees. But if there was supposed to be a wall here, then it could just be 180 degrees. So that's a little thing that you have to bear in mind when you building your floral arrangements. And this one has the same ingredients as the big one that was in the living room. And the reason for that is that these two flowers, you see them or you experience them in the same room. So I wanted them to be like a family, but this one is more foodie and is leaning this way, allowing Theo to like prepping his food. But the other one is more bombastic, big, it's bold, that's okay because it's in the living room, so it can take that space, and they goes very well together. So wherever you're looking, it's like nothing that distracts the eye. It creates harmony, even though it's maybe not so harmony much in it, but it stays there together. I remember one time when I was got this clay, I was really inspired by Keith Haring already then, and he drew this, like, you know, the dog, so I made my version of that dog in clay, really cubistic one, and then my grandfather took it, and when I come back like a couple of months later, he had glazed it and prepared it, and also he had made a version of my version of Keith Haring's dog. So he started to produce that. So now he has done that in, I think it's 2 or 3 different sizes and colors as well. The dog is called is Skotte in Swedish. What's the English word?
It's a Scottish breed, similar to a miniature schnauzer, but a bit lower with the beard.
Yeah, with a lot of hair down here. Yeah, so that's I have it by the side of the bed. Yeah, and actually that painting is by him. So one day when we were walking around in the house, he said, since I was like, me and him was connecting a lot because we were talking art and shapes and colors. He said, Nicklas, if you could choose any picture you want that I have drawn, which one would it be? And then I had this one because it was in a kind of, when you were a kid and you was like, some areas in a super big house are scary because the floor is kind of squeaking and stuff like that. And that painting was in a space that was like that. And I immediately knew that that's the one that I wanted. And he was like, it's yours. You can bring it home. So it's with me ever since. He woke up really, really early to go for a walk with his dog, and also out in his garden, checking out the flowers and stuff. And we always picked a couple of flowers to bring home. So when my grandmother come down from the stairs to have her morning coffee, he had placed the flowers just next to her coffee. So whenever she got down, wake up to a fresh set of flowers. And I think that's it's so easy and it's so simple, but it's also so thoughtful. It's a really nice gesture. And so whenever I'm out walking with Lucy, I used to pick some flowers that normally ends up next to your bed. Yeah. So you have them now in the window. Okay, let's check the bedroom. Okay, so here's the little dog that I talked about that my grandfather did, his version of my version of Keith Haring. And this is the bedside flowers that Teodor always gets as a nice thing to fall asleep to, and a nice thing to be the first thing you watch or see when you wake up. The color in here is India Yellow by Farrow and Ball. It's when the sun comes in this direction, the entire room glows, and here this is a little bit like the sun that Teodor is really into at the moment. And he sleeps on this side, so he wakes up in the sun. Sun worshipper. Yeah, and we also have this color. We had it in our house in Denmark, and we also have it in the TV room upstairs.
I think of all of the colors we've tried throughout the years, this really is the one that it sticks with us regardless of location, time, style. We always come back to India Yellow and have it somewhere.
Yeah, because it's so nice, because it varies depending on weather, the light, so it's never the same. The room and the light completely sets the tone. And these bedside tables also has like a unique story behind them. When we found the head underneath the house, next to him was this. We don't really know what they were intended to have for function, but we used them. We found 2, so it's our bedside tables now. And they, like wood do, they like crack sometimes or change color, and we absolutely love it. We age with the wood.
Also, we have another room, not so very easy to access, but one of our favorite ones, our TV room.
Yeah, it's up here, and it functions as both as a TV room and a guest room. When we moved in, we had the TV in the living room, but after a short while, we realized that TV, when it's turned off, is just a black square, and it creates such strange energy having this black hole. So we didn't want it in the living room, but we still needed it. And we had this space. So up here it's super cozy, and it's completely private, and it's super nice to watch film up here.
Yeah. And Lucy comes up here as well, but she needs some help. Looking at our previous homes, has been quite a mix. Like when we lived in China, I think it was 35 square meters.
Yeah, it was so small.
So small. So and it was a service department. So we were really limited on what we could do there. But that was also nice because it kind of it was a break. It was a couple of years of collecting input instead and inspiration. And then when we moved to Denmark, we bought an enormous house, huge house. And I think
4 floors.
4 floors.
Yeah.
We're 100 years old, brick house, stunning. But it was all painted in grey.
Yeah, different shades of grey. Yeah, not the fun thing.
Yeah.
Just boring grey.
Yeah. But again, I think we started off really jointly coming up with a vision as well. And I think also looking at the actual architecture, the style and setting of that actual house, I think that's a really good start.
Yeah.
Because if you have an old house, what's that identity? How can we stay true? How can we find the best elements from that time and so on? So I think at that time then for that house we did it was quite elaborate mood board.
Yeah.
We knew that we want to go towards a much more color blocking, much more a
intense colors.
Intense colors, very inspired by
Art museums.
art museums.
How they, especially Danish art museums,
Yeah.
they're really good at putting strong colors in separate rooms and then adding art on top of that.
Yeah.
And you might think that just having white walls with art on that makes the art pop. But it's kind of the opposite if you work with it.
Yeah. But then when we have this joint vision or mood board or a direction, then we really go our quite separate ways.
Yeah.
We always stay true somehow to our direction and vision. So but as an example, I'm the one doing most of the cooking and so on, so I take lead in kitchen and stuff like that. You take other spaces, especially your creative spaces.
Yeah, my studio and my office is it can be wild in there.
Yeah.
And you are kind of looking the other way if you're walking by that room and just allowing things to be as they were left.
Exactly. Because in the end of the day, we are never fixed we're never done. Our space is constantly evolving.
The reason why we picked Denmark after we went to China is because my mom's Danish. So when I was a kid, we were in Denmark all the time. So that's the connection there. And when we also used to go to Denmark a lot when we lived in Sweden before. And my grandfather is a potter. So he has a ceramic studio there. So whenever we were kids, we got a clay, and then we got to do something. And then we came back a couple of months later. He have burned it and glazed it, and then it was a cycle. And then we got a new clay and new glazed product. And he has a rose garden there, huge. So he taught me how to paint in those gardens with watercolors and stuff. And My mom taught me how to appreciate flowers, so because she's a florist. So flowers has always been like a super present element in my life. And she also had a flower store in this tiny village where I grew up. So whenever after school I went to her store and just played around with whatever fell on the floor. That was not good enough to sell, but super good enough for me to play with. So I think maybe that's where my appreciation for like leftover flowers or flowers that kind of will bloom over in 2 seconds. That's when they are most majestic, I think. They're most colorful. I like that.
So this is our utility room.
And in here is 3 outtakes from a project I did when we lived in China. I created a floral lexicon called Florography, and that's the meaning of flowers. Because every flower has a meaning. If you give them by right or left hand, right upside down or down, or even if it's how many numbers they are or what colors they are. So I was in contact with a lot of florists all around the world to see is it the same meaning, is it the same language? And there was slightly differences, but mostly it was the same meaning. So I took pictures of a lot of flowers, and I had an exhibition with it, both in China, Denmark, and in Sweden, and with these images. And it also ended up in a book that was called Florography. Yeah. And daffodils is another favorite. It's vibrant. And it's the sign of spring, which everyone loves when it arrives. Yeah.
And down there, you have a huge, big ship with rainbow colors. And actually, it's a quite nice story around that one. It was a couple of years ago when we lived in China. We took the opportunity to travel as much as we could, whilst being, in that region. So one time we went to Bali. And I was so bored at the beach.
You're easily bored at
I'm
the
easily
beach.
bored at the beach. So are you. So I bought this kite. And I had a blast. Like all days, every day, I was out with my kite. And I completely fell in love with this kite. So I packed it in my bag and everything. And on our way home, the airport security staff took it. I was not allowed to take the kite. Devastated, obviously. We went back and tried to find it, but we couldn't. And years passed. And what you need to know about Nicklas, he is a master of giving gifts. The worst at receiving gifts as well, I have to say. Yeah.
True. Yeah.
But fantastic at giving gifts. So one day when we actually got the house, it's quite windy here being on the west coast. He surprised me with a gift and never in a million years could have, he always gives me gifts, very thoughtful gifts that I always love. But never in a million years I would have imagined that I would get this exact same kite, which I got.
I researched a lot.
Yeah, and unfortunately, at that day there was no wind at all. So
you were running with no wind.
I was running here trying to get it up, but there was I had to give up. So now it's there, parked, and I absolutely love it.
And here's the bathroom, and this room is actually one of the best rooms to photograph flowers in. And like here, for example, I placed the pedestal, the ones that I collect there, and as you can see, it's like amazing light for the flowers. And that's when the flowers is here, just next to the Keith Haring poster that we found on a flea market. It's really nice combination of the pop art and the new art. The entire house was this color. It wasn't painted, so it was like going into an old sauna almost. You couldn't see any furniture or anything. It was just wood all the time. It's fascinating. Maybe we wouldn't do that today, but it was like standard back then.
Yeah.
So when we first saw this house, and also when we started to carry our bags here, the nature was like complete. It was the forest.
Yeah. We had really taken over.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. So we started to like sculpture it down, and when we did that, we found things, areas that someone very long time ago have created, but nature have taken over. So it was like, oh, we didn't know this existed. And we had that experience on several places in the garden. And so we started to like sculpture it, and then like fine tune areas, but not too harsh, because we really wanted it to be, I mean, we are in the nature, and we wanted it to still feel like you are in the nature, but you still need to like keep it clean, not make it look messy.
Yeah, exactly. And also really having like, we have these huge oak trees, and really also allowing them to take space as well, and for them to really pop and, you know, bring out their silhouettes as well, without being it like too overwhelming of too many things. Also.
And they are quite unique to this area of Sweden, the oak trees, because they are, the soil or something is just perfect for them, so they are massive.
Exactly.
We are not completely fond of them because the leaves never goes away. So it's like we love
it's a lot of work having oak trees, and we have a lot of them. But it's still nice, and it's
they are beautiful.
They're beautiful.
Yeah.
But a lot of work. For sure.
Yeah.
Let's move outside. This is our outside shower, but it's more kind of like vibe, I would say. This area is really like, you can have your morning coffee, you know, you can like just like enjoy the nature, and while you're, you know, doing all of this. And we thought it was a bit weird having an outside shower, but I think this is one of our like best things with this house, actually.
Yeah, it is.
You know,
it grows on you.
It grows on you being outside, like even if it's like in the middle of the night and you're showering and you see all the stars in the sky.
Or if it's raining. It's
or
amazing
if it's raining.
Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just like being out, it's still hot water, of course. And
before going to work and having like a rain shower.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And you just like kind of like move through the house in this whole area. It's a really good way to both start and end a day.
Yeah, and obviously there was an area that kind of invites placing flowers on them. So naturally I did. So these different types of grass I picked down at the sea. And since they are outside, they needed to be in a vase that is really high, and I wanted it to be like really fill the space. So the vase is like, it's ceramic, porcelain, but it looks like it's metal, but it's not. And as everybody know who wants to place flowers outside, you know there's wind that you have to have in mind. And this you need to have like a really heavy vase that can stay put, and this one can. So we can easily leave it overnight, or how long you want, because it stays there and it's still. And I love that you create something beautiful, and then it just grows with nature. Nature does what it wants with it. I love that. Okay, so now we're outside, and this is our dinner area outside. The table by hay. It's Danish, so we love it, obviously. And flowers, always bombastic. We're outside, they can be as big as we want, or the flowers allow. But the view is, you can see on a clear day, you can see miles and miles away. So this side is for the guests. So they get the view here and they obviously get Theo's food also as a view. And me and Theo, we always sit on that side because we don't need the view, the guests get it. So we look at the guests and the house. Yeah, that's how we treat the guests. And also over here is the final sculpture by the Japanese ceramist Noe. It's also like creature or mountain. Anyhow, it's a vase, so we need it.
We really connected with this place.
Yeah, it's our sanctuary.
Yeah. I think another level of being creative, being so close to like so many types of elements here. You really have the forest, you have the sea, you have farming land. We have sheep almost living like next door.
Yeah, we can hear them on
Yeah.
some mornings.
Yeah, exactly. And they go out taking walks just by our house as well. We, long term, for sure, we really want to spend much more time here. I mean, of course, we do like having both the city and this kind of like country.
Yeah, we like the contrast.
Yeah, we like the contrast
With that.
for sure. But I think as time goes, we're leaning much more to being much more at ease here, a bit more creative.
Yeah, you unwind in a certain way when you're
Exactly.
this close to nature.
Yeah.
Like the rhythm of the sea or the wind in the trees. It's
Yeah.
like you can't get that in
No,
the city.
Exactly. And of course, Lucy, being out all day.
It always comes back to Lucy.
No, so it's a very special place for us, and for sure, long term, spending much more time here. And we've just started to kind of like explore what that means. I mean, it's perfect for us right now, but if we want to spend more time here, we need to rethink certain things. And luckily, we're friends with this, I think, amazing architect. He is just brilliant.
One of the best, you could
One
say.
of the best, for sure. So we reached out, and we actually invited him to spend 24 hours here with us. Because we really felt that if we are expanding something, it needs to be done in the right way. It needs to be done much more than just a drawing on a piece of paper. We need somebody to kind of like understand us.
Yeah.
To understand
How we live, how we
live.
use the space,
Yeah.
what we appreciate
Yeah.
in this space, in nature,
Yeah.
how we use the house and what we lack in the house.
Exactly. So we invited him to come and stay with us for 24 hours. We really did kind of like the best of the best.
Yeah.
I think we were having dinners, we were out swimming in the ocean late at night, we did walks in the forest, we spent time in the garden.
He saw the morning sun behind the trees moving that way, how the sun moves and touches objects. Yeah.
So we really kind of wanted him to also really understand how we feel about this place as well. So that was really, really nice. And I think it was so good that we did that as well.
Yeah.
So he's thinking and drawing as we speak. So we have no idea yet what will come back and what shape or form. So it's...
He had some initial ideas that we really appreciated. It was like, we appreciate the nature, like the mountains, the rocks, and the spectacular view and nature on that side. So he wanted to like interpretate that somehow, which we of course appreciated. But we haven't seen anything yet, so it might be the complete opposite. So we'll see.
We'll see. Thanks for stopping by, Homeworthy.
But now it's time to go. Bye.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Victoria. Welcome to my home in Chester, Nova Scotia. Let me show you around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Victoria Armour, and I'm an interior designer. Welcome to my home. My husband and I moved to Halifax during COVID, and after we kind of got settled and thought the hustle and bustle would slow down a little bit, it never really did. We had work and we had the kids, and everything just kind of kept up with life being busy. So we were drawn to the concept of, I guess, buying like a summer home or a cottage outside of the city where we could really slow down and relax. We have 3 young kids. They're 2, 4, and 6. So we thought, why don't we find somewhere where we can kind of, get out of the craziness and look to make some memories with them. So at that time, Natalie, my business partner, her and her husband had been in Chester for a few years, and they spoke really highly of it. They also have young kids, and they spoke really highly of the community. They loved the atmosphere, and really what drew them to Chester was exactly what we were looking for. So we thought, okay, why don't we kind of set out to see what's on the market? And if we find something right away, that's wonderful. If it takes a year or two, we're also okay to wait. We weren't in a huge rush. And lo and behold, this was the second home that we toured. So it was a very quick, I think from like deciding to start looking at places to finding this, I was like 2 months, so it happened much faster than we anticipated. I would describe the style of this home as Palm Beach meets Canadian East Coast. So I have a huge affinity for the Palm Beach color palette, which would be pinks and corals and turquoise and aqua. And I knew that I wanted to incorporate that into this space, but of course, palm trees were going to feel kind of crazy in here. So it was really this marriage of taking those colors that I loved from the Palm Beach aesthetic and thinking, how can I marry those with a, coastal kind of sailing community home? So this definitely is different than my home in the city. I think, for your primary residence, people typically want something that feels a little calmer, a little more kind of neutral and easy in your day-to-day life. Your home in the city has to kind of take you through 4 seasons. So it's difficult, especially in Canada, to really go all in on something bright or all in on something moody, because then on a beautiful July day, a moody home's gonna feel strange. And on a dark winter day, if you're looking at like bright flowers on your wall, it's also gonna feel a little bit off. What I love about this space is because it's a summer home, you can go all in on that like summer aesthetic and just make it really happy and vibrant and fun. Welcome to my living room. So the focal point of this room is definitely the hand-painted mural that spans the entire width of the room. As I mentioned before, this all used to be really dark, heavy cherry wood. So when we painted it out white, it was a huge contrast from where we started to where it went. And I knew it kind of had swung the pendulum a little too far the other way. Because the walls are made of plaster, we actually couldn't wallpaper in here. So that was definitely a challenge when I thought about, okay, how do I add some more color? Because the walls did feel too stark. And the solution was to bring in a decorative painter. So even though this looks like wallpaper, there was a Schumacher print that I absolutely loved, and I brought it to Anya and I said, are you able to transcribe this into my summer home? And she brought an assistant. It took them, I'd say, a couple of days. Maybe they were here 2-3 days, and they had a stencil, and the assistant would actually follow the stencil all the way around, and then Anya would follow behind and fill in all those little details. So it's really stunning, because when you walk in here, everybody assumes it's wallpaper, but if you go up close, it's really beautiful, and every flower has a little bit of a unique feel and a unique little flair. Something that was challenging for her after the fact, which I actually didn't even notice, meaning she did an amazing job, is the trim does not run at a 180-degree angle all the way around the room. So if you actually look at the flowers, here, for example, you see a little peekaboo of the bottom one, but on the other side of the room, you see kind of halfway up the flower. And to be honest, I don't think it's something that anybody notices, so she just did amazing. So the fireplace is the original fireplace. I chose not to paint it out, to leave the original brick, because I just think it really brings such character to the home. This is a 120-year-old house, and really when designing, there was this tension between maintaining all those special little details that keep the house traditional and historic, but then modernizing it to kind of my style and my vision. So the fireplace was something that we painted out, but keeping the original brick really felt special to me, and it has that worn-in feel. Then we added these sconces, and what I love about the sconces is they do have this playful flair to them. They're a little bit more modern, they're a little bit unexpected, but they really fit that kind of like whimsical, fun vibe. And the brass kind of grounds them and makes them feel more antique and more traditional than they actually are. Then I found these kind of cute pieces. These are mostly from my travels, from, looking at things online, getting targeted Instagram ads, because the algorithm just knows me that well at this point. What I love about this cottage is when I find these kind of little decor items, these little trinkets that typically, I could never put this in my primary home, but I see it and I'm like, this is so cute and it's perfect for this space. So if you guys come back in a few years, probably this entire ledge will be flooded with little crazy pieces, but this is a little bird from Iceland that I just added this summer, and I just love that it fits so perfectly. It's not necessarily about just buying things to fill a room. I think you get a space kind of to the ground level where you like it, but then over time, it's got to feel more collected. You've got to add things that have story and that have, thoughtfulness and fun behind them. And that's kind of what this is for me. Over here, I have this cravat chair, and this little corner was a bit of a puzzle for me. So obviously it needed something to fill it, but with two doors kind of spanning each end to the exterior and to the sunroom, it needed to feel thoughtful and intentional. So this chair, again, has this old world feel with a custom pillow, and something that I love that you'll see throughout the entire home are these switch plates. So switch plates are something that are often an afterthought in most renovations or most homes. But going back to that really historic, traditional character of this home, I knew I couldn't just put a plain white modern switch plate. So I found these, they're Forbes and Lomax, and they go throughout the entire home. And I think they really just go back to that original character, even though they're new and modern. When we purchased the home, the original owner actually had some really beautiful antiques that I was fortunate enough to inherit. This table and these chairs being kind of this sitting area was already good to go. What I did do was I added these pillows. They're custom cravat pillows, and they have a really cool story behind them in terms of that they were a special collaboration between Christopher Faircloth and Fogo Island. And Fogo Island is a special kind of maritime gem, the Fogo Island Inn, which is part of, our maritime history. So when I saw that these were part of that collection, I knew that they would be perfect for this space, and they really tie into the story of the home. Something that I did in this space, because obviously it's a huge, expansive room, and it really needed to feel purposeful and intentional and balanced. We couldn't have, this side feel like such a moment and this side be completely bare. And I think we achieved that through the use of custom pillows. So all the pillows you see in here, the fabric was chosen specifically for a reason. The trim details and pieces were added to make sure that color story really felt cohesive from end to end. These are some of my favorite. I just love this little trim piece. It's a little bit like a rainbow, but actually pulls all the colors from the room together. So I think it just adds a little bit of fun. And I also got these striped chairs and ordered an ottoman to go with the striped chairs. And again, going back to balance within a room, pulling that ottoman over to the love seat created kind of that balance in terms of the stripes both living on each end of the room. These drapes are definitely a moment in here. They were a bit of a risk, and people do ask me, how did your husband feel about having blush pink drapes in the primary living space of this summer home? And luckily, my husband is slightly colorblind and he loves pink. So however he sees pink is very appealing. And I was very fortunate that he loves how everything turned out, because they definitely frame this window and frame this view beautifully and add that pop of color that's really complementary to the wall detail that's going on. So this is the entryway, and this is kind of the heart of the home. This is where you come in the front door, you go left to the living space, right to the kitchen and dining, or upstairs. And as you can see, it's kind of long and narrow, but it still needed to feel thoughtful and considered. So immediately I knew that I wanted to do a really fun bench seat over here. Too much of a good thing is a wonderful thing. I saw this on Anthropology, and this was actually my starting point. So I got this and then pulled in these really bright pinks and corals to just kind of have this feel like its own little moment. I'd say it's definitely more of an aesthetic play because this is a summer home. No one's coming in, taking their boots off, sitting down, but it really kind of frames this out, which I absolutely love. This art I also found early days when I started designing this cottage, and when I bought it, I wasn't sure where I was going to put it. I just knew that I loved it and I would find a home for it. It's by Karen Bramhill, who's an artist based in Ottawa, and she actually has a really cool story where she, similar to me, I guess, in interior design, similar to a ton of creatives, where she was late to the game in terms of starting her career as an artist and just kind of stumbled into it as a hobby. And I mean, her stuff is absolutely stunning. I love the color palette. The piece is called Slowing Down, which I thought was so appropriate for the fact that this photo looks out onto the ocean. And our whole mantra of buying this home was to be able to slow down and get out of kind of like the craziness of day-to-day life. So it really holds a super special place in my heart. So the stairs, we painted out at the same time that I painted out the rest of the cottage. What I really did as a nod to the fact that this space connects to both the dining and living areas was painted the risers, this Teresa's Green by Farrow and Ball. You'll see over in the dining room that the straight sight line is another huge kind of built-in chest in the same paint color. So it really was a nod to the fact of bringing that paint color from one space to the other. And it's also just a little more playful. It's somewhere that's kind of neutral. So I always go back to how can I kind of add some color and create like a special moment here. Now let me show you our dining room. So similar to the living room, Anya, the decorative artist, came in and painted out this incredible mural of the Chester landscape. Our starting point was Susan Harder, but we wanted to make it feel a little more whimsical, a little more playful. So we took a Susan Harder kind of inspired piece and put our own twist on it. She used the Chester landscape, which is really what we see when we look at our front window in terms of sailboats, trees, a ton of greenery, and really brought that inside. I think this mural definitely makes the space in terms of when you walk in, it's immediately where your eyes go. For the dining space, I have 3 young children, so I wanted it to look good, but I also wanted it to work for our lives. Because this is a cottage, I mean, at home, I can be chasing them and I can be nagging them a little bit. But when we're out here, I just want to be able to chill and not worry about sticky hands or messy fingers or crayons on top of the table. So I went super basic in terms of a wood top and wood chairs without any fabric. This was a bit of a tough design decision, though it worked functionally. I knew that everything around it had to feel really textured and bold so that this kind of didn't fall flat. And it achieved what I wanted. My kids can be in here and I can be in the kitchen and I'm not fussing about what they're doing in the dining room. So that's a big relief. The fireplace, similar to the living room, we kept the original fireplace, didn't paint anything out, kept all the original character. Some of these antiques that you'll see are from Conifer Shop in Lunenburg, which is a really wonderful local antique shop. So along with what the previous owner had and what we were able to source locally, I pulled in some colorful antiques like this vase to really have a nod to all the color palette that's going on within this room. You'll notice a little bit more yellow in here than in the other spaces. I think it really just brightens it up. This is a piece that I got in Paris. We were invited on a trip with Kravit to go see Maison Objet last January. And it's funny because I'm not sure that lemons are necessarily the Parisian flair that you would expect, but we had an afternoon free and Natalie and I just kind of went thrift shopping, and this was here. And it was one of these special pieces similar to the piece that I found in Iceland that I just knew I could bring in and find a little spot for and add kind of a little more personality to the room. And every time you look at these pieces, they do tell a story in terms of where you've been, where they came from, and it holds those memories for me. So that's wonderful. This built-in chest of drawers is the Teresa's Green, which mirrors what we have going on the stairs. So this was really a moment. These yellow vines are a custom Thibaut fabric. We have an amazing company that we work with here called the Window Edit. And what I really was unsure of when I pulled this fabric was, do I want them at half or full on the window? Is the room gonna get enough natural light if I really bring them all the way up? And ultimately, I did decide to bring them all the way up. I didn't want to cut off this repeat because I really felt you needed the scale and the full look to get the impact from the fabric. And I mean, on a beautiful sunny day like today, we are not shy of natural light in here. So it was definitely the right decision. This is your sight line when you come in directly from the entry point, and it just makes me smile every single time I see it. This is just, again, kind of like an eclectic piece. I saw these when I was in Toronto, hot pink bowls. When would I ever use them? Of course, the answer is in Chester. So they belong here, and this is just a little piece of all the things that I love. This candle over here is another item that just makes me smile. It's banana pudding, Boy Smells, with a collaboration with Magnolia Bakery. And I absolutely love the Magnolia Bakery banana pudding. So this is a wonderful scent to bring into my home. This is probably my favorite piece of furniture in the entire home. And it has a really wonderful story to it. As I mentioned, Fogo Island in my living room. So last summer, my husband and I went to the Fogo Island Inn with Natalie and her husband. And if you don't know much about the Fogo Island Inn, really the kind of Cole's notes of this story is that Zita Cobb, who grew up there, she went off and had a very successful career, but always had this tie to coming back home in Newfoundland. And primarily Newfoundland is a fishing economy. So she saw her small town start to kind of dwindle away over the years as she was living abroad. And she thought, I need to come back and do something for my community, or my community is essentially just going to die out. So she came back and started this not-for-profit and built this incredible, aesthetically interesting inn in Fogo Island, and utilized, local craftsmen, local materials, and revitalized the economy, like fully has lifted up the economy there. If anybody is thinking about kind of an off-the-grid type vacation, it's an incredible experience. So when it comes to the pieces of furniture, she brought in, I want to say, around 20 European designers to work with local craftsmen in Newfoundland and create pieces that were reminiscent of old Fogo and the Fogo lifestyle, but from designer eye. So this was something that was, I think it's in every room at the Fogo Island Inn, and it's called the Get Your Feet Up chair. And the concept is that you can sit in it like this, have your coffee here, and just kind of read a book or relax. So this is a really special piece. I waited quite a while to get it because it's very custom, but when it arrived, it was 1,000% worth the wait. Now let me show you into our kitchen. So given the fact that when we bought this as a second home, we had no furniture to bring, we were starting from scratch essentially. I was trying to keep as much of the existing bones and things that were still in good condition as I could. I didn't need to rip everything out and start from scratch. And the kitchen was one of those places. So the countertop and the cabinetry was existing. And I guess what I did in here was I just put some lipstick on it. It was white walls, white cabinetry, white marble, and I wanted it to obviously feel really cohesive with the rest of the home. So my starting point in here was these two pendants. They're visual comfort, and they just felt very beachy to me, almost like a seashell, the shape, they're plaster, they're kind of organic. So I knew immediately that I wanted to put these in here, but again, they're white. So what else was I going to do to make this room feel interesting? Next, I moved on to the wallpaper. So a question I get often is it risky having wallpaper in a kitchen? Obviously, it's somewhere that's messy. It's somewhere that gets, a lot of love in terms of wear and tear. And wallpaper typically isn't thought of as super durable. This is actually a vinyl wallpaper, which I chose on purpose, and vinyl is much more durable. It can withstand much more of a beating, and it looks just as good as new. So this blue wallpaper really brought that color palette in here. I painted out the trim and the ceiling in a light blue to really make that wallpaper feel super cohesive and wrap that blue all the way around, given there was so much existing white and so many hard surfaces that were already white. From there, I just layered. I just, again, kind of went and picked some decorative objects that added color, that added personality, that felt very of place. This was from a local shop in Halifax, just a little stitched sailboat. This I've had for a decade. It is from Amsterdam, a salt and pepper shaker, and I never really had a place for it. I kept it in the back of a closet. And when we moved out here, I thought, my little pig salt and pepper shakers, this is the perfect home. This is from Conifer Shop. Again, mixing that old and new was so important in every room here. It couldn't just feel modern. It had to be reminiscent and bring those old pieces in. So this cutting board, it's really more, I actually had friends down, and one of them is a trained chef. And he was going to make a charcuterie board. So I don't know, I'm off like chasing the kids around. And I come back in and he's making the charcuterie board on my decorative cutting board. And he just kind of looks at me. He's like, was I not supposed to use this? I'm like, it's fine. But again, I think as an interior designer, like what are pieces that work for your home and what are pieces that are nice to look at. So this is one of those nice to look at pieces. It's more of a style play. The blue knives, just like a fun scalloped edge bowl. All of the pieces in here are just really thought through in terms of what can bring fun and color. These side plates and little bowls are cabbage bowls. So again, just something really fun. We use these when we have guests, and I just think they're really cute for a summer home. I have, let me see in here, I also have the full dinner plate size, which is some of my favorite plates. Over here, we have our kind of coffee, tea, bar area. These mugs are from Etsy. Again, they add color, they add playfulness. So while nothing in here was totally ripped up, I think it's really a testament to using kind of decorative features, thoughtful edges, texture, color, and it can totally transform a space. Over here on the stools, we have these rattan stools. These are custom seat covers, talking about that color story of pulling blues and pinks throughout the home. So it's got the pink stripe with the coral, and I think this just kind of finishes off the space in terms of like an extra pop of color. What drew us to Chester was, I guess, first the fact that it's only 45 minutes from Halifax. My husband and I are both entrepreneurs, so even when we're down here in the summer, we do have to kind of be back and forth between the city. So that commute felt very manageable. I guess being in a bigger city, you have more than a 45-minute commute every day. So that became a non-issue. We also love the atmosphere here. It's very small town. It's a very kind of close-knit community. Everybody knows everybody. You're walking down the street and people say hi. I think when we purchased the home, you know, at least 5 or 6 neighbors came over with cookies or cards or bottles of wine. And that was just something really special. I don't think you get that every day, you know, in other parts of the world or in other cities. And we also love the whole sailing community. We are not sailors, but we've heard that it's really wonderful for the kids to kind of grow up in this little bubble and have these summer friends and these people that you come back here every summer and they grow up together at the sailing club. And this summer was our son's first summer as part of the Chester Sailing Club, and he absolutely loved it. We actually have a water view, and he would go out on his like mini little boat, and we'd take the binoculars out and look at him, and he'd come back at the end of the day and say, "Mom and Dad, I saw you guys looking at me." So it's just been really special. And now I want to show you the real selling point of this house, which is this gorgeous dock with this view of the peninsula. So as any good realtor would, he took us through the home first. And, you know, we love the home, beautiful bones, beautiful tradition and architectural details, but they always save the best for last. At the end of the visit, he brought us down here to a private dock that overlooks the Chester Peninsula. The Chester Yacht Club is just down there. So all summer long, there's boats coming and going, and it really is a testament to the sailing culture down here. Every August, there's Chester Race Week, which people come from all over the world to race their sailboats, and it's very special to have this place and be able to sit and enjoy and just take in this beautiful slice of the world. Even though I put so much time, effort, love into designing the inside of the home, this is the space where memories are made. My kids come down here and skip rocks. You know, we swim, we jump off the dock, we have friends down here, and the adults can sit and have a beer while the kids play on the beach. I know that, you know, come 20, 30, 40 years, this is the place that I'm going to remember Chester by. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My father was an entrepreneur from the time he was in his 20s and grew a transportation and logistics business. So that was really my first exposure to, I guess, the business side of things. I went through university and got an MBA. And then after finishing school, I went back and worked for my family for almost a decade. So very business focused, very much not creative. And I always did have this creative piece though, when I look back, and I think a lot of designers will say this, where, you know, you talk about rearranging your furniture or painting your room, helping friends as I kind of got into my 20s and helping them with paint or what should I buy here. But it takes some time, I think, for a lot of designers to really build that connection between I can do this for a living versus it's just like a fun hobby. So for me, I really only dove into the world of doing design full-time in my early 30s. And I had met Natalie, who's now my business partner, and she was kind of doing the same thing. She was doing it a little bit as a hobby. I was doing it a little bit as a hobby. And when her and I clicked, I think there was something really special between us. And we just said, you know, do we want to kind of go all in together and see where this goes? And that was 3 years ago, and we haven't looked back. It's been wonderful. My go-to design tip would be to always think about the color story in your home. You know, most of the homes that we do incorporate color either in a big way or a small way. But we always talk about how you make a home feel personal is through color. You know, if everything's just neutral, it's going to feel like everybody else's home. So you need to find those really special moments to drop color in. And for this space in particular, I decided to weave the color story from day one into pinks and blues. So as we go through the home, you'll see there might be turquoise in one room, there might be navy in another room, there might be baby blue in another room. On the flip side, there could be corals, there could be blush pinks, but it's keeping that common thread between the pinks and the blues as you walk through the home, that it doesn't feel matchy-matchy, but it also still feels connected. So my go-to tip for people would be to really think, especially if they're renovating or changing up multiple spaces, how do these connect through color? It doesn't have to be one for one, but take that grounding color and kind of weave it into the story, and it'll make your home feel really connected. Welcome to the primary bedroom. This is another space that, and you'll see this actually in all the upstairs bedrooms, these ceilings were definitely a challenge. We're working around really old, plaster, dated ceilings that, again, it is what it is. This bed is kind of one of my favorite pieces in the room, all the bedding that goes along with it. A key design element, and you'll see this throughout all the bedrooms, is I had to have very low headboards. So with these angles on the walls, we couldn't do something that was really an interesting tall headboard, which made the bedding be such a key thing in order to kind of drive design and color and fun in these spaces. This is a Schumacher quilt. It was kind of the last piece of the room that I actually pulled together. I had a neutral kind of beige quilt in here, and it never felt quite right. It kind of fell flat. And after being here for about a year, I found this online and I knew it was definitely the right piece. So I purchased this and swapped it out and haven't looked back. Something else I love about the bedding is these lobster sheets. It's kind of this homage, this nod to the East Coast. So the lobster sheets will always have a special place in my heart. I also have my lobster sandals, which everybody makes fun of me for, but I saw an influencer wearing them and I was like, well, she's cool. I can pull them off, right? Nobody seems to think they're cool except me, but clearly, if I'm highlighting them in this video, I'm pretty attached to them. Over here, this is new and we just needed some storage. You'll notice all the closets in here are very small. They're built in. Again, they were back from when the house was built. So function and, need for clothing wasn't necessarily top of mind. So we just added this in to give us a little more flexibility, a little more storage. This is original art from a gallery in Halifax. The sailboat, the color palette, again, tying back to everything that you see going on in the other rooms. We have an original fireplace in here, and I painted out the surround just a little bit of a creamier color than the white walls, just so it could have its kind of own moment and really stand on its own. These are custom shades from Etsy on an Amber Lewis sconce. These were added. I felt like the wall was a little bit flat, so we added these sconces with these custom Etsy shades, and I think it really just finishes this off over here. This is an antique dresser. You'll also see these in most of the bedrooms. They were inherited by the previous owner, and I think they just have so much character. I love the built-in mirrors. So again, while they don't provide a ton of storage, I think aesthetically, they just tie everything into the home. Welcome to the upstairs bathroom. This space was definitely the biggest design risk from my perspective. It's a small space with a lot going on. And as a designer, you'll know that you get decision fatigue, even in your own home. And there's always kind of this space at the end that you pick one thing, and you're like, I like that. And then you kind of pick one thing and you're just kind of crossing your fingers that it all works out. And to be honest, this is one of my favorite spaces in the home. So I even surprised myself. The wallpaper in here has a little bit of cream to it. It obviously has a ton of color, which I absolutely love. It ties into that pink, blue, coral, everything you've seen downstairs. We also painted out the trim around the window and the baseboard in Benjamin Moore First Light, which is a really soft, delicate pink. It's very feminine and it frames this beautiful view out to the backyard. The vanity matches the trim color, so it is also in First Light. And what I love about this vanity is even though it's new, it has a bit of old world charm. It has the curved edges, it has the detail on the door face, it has the interesting backsplash. So it was meant to feel a little bit more historic in terms of how it was designed and the style. The floors are geometric marble. One of the things that I was unsure of when I chose them was how was the marble going to hold up in a bathroom where, you're bringing sand, you're bringing little kind of like dirty feet. It's not necessarily like at home where you're walking around with socks all the time. So this was something in terms of when you're always balancing functionality with style. I definitely leaned more towards style than function with these floors. They might not last 20 years, but they'll last long enough that it was definitely worth it for me. Welcome to my daughter's room. This is a little girl's space. She's 4 years old, and I wanted it to be able to grow with her. So really, in terms of hard finishes, you know, this lime green table, blinds to match with the rest of the home, this visual comfort lamp, everything that is going to stay in the house will grow with her. But then we took really like interesting moments to have fun. So she picked these ballerina sheets herself because she's 4. And this isn't a very large bed. She sometimes, when she's asleep, falls out of the bed. So we have a bumper under here, if anybody is wondering what this large lump underneath the quilt is. She also chose, we have some of her books. She also chose this cute little lamp. And somewhere that I love is Artfully Walls. So Artfully Walls has really beautiful, affordable art that, you know, if it's not going to be your wow moment for original art, you can go there and get some really cute pieces. So for example, this pink mermaid and seashell photo just really fit the space well. I was a bit unsure what to do over here, given the wall is so low, but it felt really bare. And when I found this piece of art, I knew that it was perfect. Welcome to the guest room. This is another room. It really mirrors what you see going on in the primary, just losing the fireplace, but the angles in the ceiling, you know, kind of the tight spaces around the bed. I took fabrics, I took texture, I took the bedding, and I just tried to make this a really fun space. What you'll see in a lot of the rooms are the nightstands actually aren't symmetrical. They aren't even matching. That again goes back to these strange angles in the wall where one side you might have 24 inches to play with, the other side you have 10 inches. So you can't just go buy a set of nightstands and call it a day. It's actually a space where I had to be really thoughtful about not only aesthetics, but function. In a guest room, people are coming, they're putting their phone down, they're unpacking. So thinking about how do they use this space day to day. Something we've done in this guest room too, given that we have young children, we do have a lot of families that come and stay. So how can we add more sleeping space? We have a king bed in here and a twin bed to just really maximize the number of people that can come enjoy this place. We have this nice little desk where you can sit down, do your makeup, unpack your things. And then something really beautiful about this exterior space for our guests is that there's actually access to an outdoor patio. This is our second upstairs bathroom. Again, a little smaller, a little tighter, but that's what you get with these old homes. We gutted this entire bathroom and really we're trying to improve the storage, the flow, and the function in here. So some of the key design decisions were, of course, this jellyfish wallpaper. I had pitched it to 20 clients and nobody bid. I think it was a little bold, it was a little risky, but that's the beauty of being a designer. You can always we call it our design graveyard. You can tuck all your best ideas into the graveyard, and then when you design your own spaces, you pull them back out. So that's what this wallpaper was for me. Function was really key in here because it's not a huge bathroom. I really had to be thoughtful about how we found storage. So in here we have the drawers and the vanity, and then we also have this little cubby. The shower used to span the entire wall, and when we ripped it out, I stole about, I want to say 12 to 14 inches and created this little cubby area that just gives us the opportunity for more storage. Otherwise, I took this vanity and I painted it out blue, kind of to mirror the blues going on in the jellyfish. So it was a nod to that. And my absolute favorite part of this bathroom is this shade. The striped blue, I think really is just a sight line straight in, and it really ties everything together. Welcome to my son's room. Again, in here, we're trying to maximize for guests, for people to come share this space with. That was really the goal of this cottage, was not only that we could enjoy it, but to be able to have friends and family come stay with us and really make those memories. So we've added a twin bed along with the queen bed. My son is 6 and they were jumping back and forth and he smashed his head. You can see the little hole here. Because they're plaster walls, it's not as easy as patching up some drywall. So that is a project for a future date. But we have the 2 beds in here, his built-in closet, this beautiful antique dresser again, which is reminiscent in all the bedrooms. And you'll notice that in the primary, the guest room, and my son's room, it actually is the same bed frame with the low headboard, but I chose bedding and really styled the rooms differently. So it's not the bed frame that really jumps out at you. It's the color palette and all the elements of the room, and the bed frame just kind of fades into the background. Welcome to our bunky. So this was the last piece of the puzzle. This is actually a standalone structure, and when we purchased the home, it was simply storage. There was no drywall, there was nothing on the floor. It was just kind of a shell where the outdoor furniture was put at the end of the season. Given the fact that the main level is fully open concept, my husband and I, after our first summer out here, realized that we needed somewhere that we could work quietly. So we got this idea of what if we took this existing structure, finished it off inside, added air conditioning, and kind of created this separate adult space away from the kids. It's now turned into a gym office combo, which I absolutely love. And we come out here and work. These chairs are probably my favorite piece. They're custom cravat chairs with Andrew Martin fabric. Again, they're just so fun. One design decision was, do I keep these doors or do I remove them and add a transom window? Obviously, the right move for today, given that the desk is here, would be to have the transom, but we really don't know what this space is going to be long term. It works for us, given the ages of our children and where we're at in life. But 10 years down the road, this could be like a really cool bunkhouse with bunk beds for the kids. So we didn't want to limit ourselves for future growth and change. I see this a bit of a flex space. So for that reason, we decided to keep the existing doors. Over here, we have a nice arched bookshelf. We use it primarily for storage as it relates to the gym. Then we have my husband's very intense workout equipment, which I don't use, so I can't really speak to what any of this is. But we have my yoga mat and my free weights, and we're both kind of happy in terms of what we're able to get from this space and just come out here, think, be quiet, use it on the weekends, and it's really special. This shade, I think, ties everything together, given the fact that on the office side of the space, we do have some really interesting design elements going on. Then once you kind of enter the gym, obviously it's basic gym equipment. There's a lot of black. This shade just really pulls the room together end to end, and I couldn't be happier with how it turned out. Something that you're probably seeing online right now is kind of the death of the pot light, and this bunky really plays into that trend, where I put the shiplap on the ceiling to just add some visual interest, but instead of just popping pot lights in, we use these small Ralph Lauren flush mounts to just kind of have that impact. And again, the brass, you see it's kind of vintage, it's a little antique-y, and I think even though this space is all brand new, it really kind of pulls that same vibe that you're seeing in the main house. Home to me is like a good friend. So growing up, I lived in the same home my entire life. My parents actually built my house like 6 months before I was born. And there's pictures of, me as a baby coming home from the hospital, and there's pink balloons outside and the landscaping's not done. And that was my first kind of memory of home. And, fast forward 30 some years, and that is still the house that they live in today. So it was this feeling that even as I grew up and I left and I went off to university and I got my heart broken, I started my first job, I got married, I had children, I always came back to this place that was so grounding that as life changes and you grow, home kind of doesn't change. It's this place that like I said, kind of feels like an old friend that you can be apart from, but when you get back together, you just pick up exactly where you left off. And I think that's something really special.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.